what you know is not nearly as important as what you don't know. And who you know is far more important than what you know. That's why I tell veterans, reach out into the veteran community because somebody has done what you're trying to do. And they said, well, why would they help me? I'm going to be their competitor. And I said, no, you're not going to be their competitor. You are going to be an ally for them.
No matter how hard life is, we got a Charlie Mike. Yeah. Let's go.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Charlie Mike, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Raul, and your co-host is William.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back. It's so nice to be coming to you from the Pearland Podcast Studio. Feels so good, man.
Man, I get chills when you say it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. This is so much fun. This has been quite a journey. We've learned so much, and we've had an amazing run of guests. Hope you guys have really enjoyed them. If you have any suggestions, if you'd like to see someone come on, feel free to message me, William, at Charlie Mike the Podcast, or get in touch with the page. You know, there's a lot going on. If you're looking to get involved yourself, if there's a way that you think you can provide it, something, like, let us know, because we're growing, and it's just these two people on the screen that you see plus Jelly now, and it's a lot. So
it's incredible to see the growth, man.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun,
and it's just you guys. I wish y'all could see what's happening behind the screens and the moving pieces that we have that are happening. Man, we got a lot of exciting things coming out. We got a lot of exciting news coming out. We just got a lot of collaborations that are happening.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun, and it's really a testament to you, the listener or the watcher, for putting your trust in us and allowing us to be so free and creative with all of this. Your feedback, your comments, your shares, your likes go so far and letting us know how we're doing it and where we're growing. So if you have anything, speak up, let us know.
Definitely, man. Let's, without further ado, man, let's get our guest in here.
Go ahead. Bring him on. So today we have another man with a fantastic, not head of hair, mustache, facial hair.
Facial hair. Okay.
we seem to flock to each other and grow together. We have Mr. Frank Zaccari, who is a 5-time best-selling and award-winning author. And I'm sure that never gets old in your bio to hear it oftentimes, but you know how us veterans go. It's like, how do I give this guy praise and share everything that he's doing while honoring where he's come from? And I've met Mr. Frank probably a year ago when he joined the Houston Regional Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and seen him just out in the community. And we finally connected and said, let's get him on to show. So Mr. Frank, please give us a brief intro to who you are, who the Frank the author is.
Frank the author. Okay. Well, it started way back in Western New York. That's where I was born. And basically it was a steel town. So if you were going to stay there, you were going to work in steel until all the steel mills closed. And that wasn't going to happen. I just was not going to let that happen. I was a fairly good baseball player. I thought maybe that's how I would get out, but I wasn't good enough. Then the draft lottery came, and my lottery number was 10. So you're going in the military somewhere. So I waited until I took the physical, waited until I got the letter from President Nixon. Congratulations. Here's your report date. So then I said, okay, what are we going to do here? So I enlisted in the Air Force instead of going into the Army. Back then, during the Vietnam War, if you enlisted, you had to serve 4 years. If you were drafted, you served 2. So I said, okay, I'm going to be a medic in the military, in the Air Force. So I went in, did the basic training at Lackland, and was stationed at Beale Air Force Base in Northern California as a medic. I was moved into EMT role very quickly on the cardiac team. And then I stayed as a medic, went overseas. I didn't go to the war zone. I was not in country, but I went to Thailand where the hospitals were. When I came back, the colonel who was in charge of the hospital said, I need someone to run a pediatric clinic, and you're going to be it. I was an E4 at the time, and I said to him, well, sir, with all due respect, doesn't someone with a higher rank at this kind of position? And he said, normally, yes, but we think you can do it. And then you say again, well, with all due respect, sir, does anybody else want the job? And he said, well, no one wants it. That's why you're going to have it. And then he said, and we don't have any staff. And I went, oh, good. So how am I going to do 90 sick children a day, no staff? And he said, we're going to set up a meeting with the Red Cross, and we're going to get volunteers to come in and help you. Now, he said, I'm Sergeant. He says, Sergeant, this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to show them why you're doing what you're doing, how you're going to support them, and what it is that's going to occur here. Because they're volunteers. They don't have to come back. They don't have to show up, and they don't have to give you a reason. So if you're going to be successful, you better learn how to do this. And I'm all of 21 years old at the time. So we had the volunteers come in. It went well. We did a good job. They were great people, and we had a waiting list of people who wanted to work in the pediatric clinic after 6 months. So that was a wonderful run. I learned more, gentlemen, in those 4 years in the military than I learned all the way through college and a master's degree and a whole bunch of years as a corporate executive, because you had to learn to collaborate, and that's where I had to learn how to do that at 21 years of age. So when I got out of the military, I had to find a job. And so I went back to school, used the GI Bill, and I got a degree in finance. And I thought I would trade money. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. But the job, Bank of America said, Frank, you can come work for us in San Francisco. We'll pay you a whopping $10,000 a year. Well, nobody can live in San Francisco, even back then, on $10,000 a year. So I went into the high-tech world, NCR. And I was able to stay in Sacramento, where was the school where I graduated from. And for almost 25, 26 years, I was a high-tech executive. Now, the beauty of moving into that role coming from the military was NCR thought they could compete with IBM. Big mistake. But they put me in charge of programs to go after multi-million-dollar bids. So once again, NCR, all they had was equipment. They didn't have a solution. So now I had to do what I did in the Air Force. I had to find people who could do database work, networking work. I had to put teams together to go after and try to secure this business. Now, many of these were companies outside of NCR. They didn't know each other. We didn't know each other. Mm-hmm. So we had to give them that, here's how we're going to win, and trust me, and here's how we're going to do it. So that went on very well for quite a while. In the tech sector. At what I thought was the height of my professional career, I was a CEO of 2 companies in Seattle, Washington. My wife left. I then had custody of my 2 young daughters. And I said, well, I can't be in high tech because I'm gone 2 weeks out of every month. Wow. So we left Seattle, moved back to California, and I bought an insurance agency. And if you go from a proactive industry like high tech to a reactive industry like insurance, it's like dying and going to hell. So it was a means to an end. Okay, I had these 2 young daughters. I had to get them through school. I had to be a full-time dad. So we got that done. Thank God. They both went through college. They graduated, and when the youngest one graduated in December a few years ago, I sold the insurance agency. We had an interesting conversation as they came up and said, Frank, you're one of the most profitable agencies in all of California. People like that don't sell. And I said, well, I'm going to give you 2 reasons why I want to sell state office people. Number 1, I hate this. Number 1. And number 2, you sell while you're high. Yeah. So I learned that as a finance major. So I sold the business. And then it was basically, what are you going to do when you grow up? Because now I'm getting close to 60 years old. And I was like, wow, okay, now what? So I dabbled a little bit, did some work with nonprofits like we kind of all do. I got involved with a number of veteran programs. I was a mentor with the Veterans Treatment Court in Sacramento. And this is where a veteran commits a crime, but it's not a heinous crime. And they go through rehabilitation rather than a punitive program. So if the veteran that you're a mentor for does everything right, they can be through the program in 12 months, and then all their charges are expunged, just like they never existed. And that was amazing. I loved doing that. That was a lot of fun. It's a real judge going through guys who had been through some horrific things and helping them get to where they wanted to go. So I got exposed to a lot of things, a lot of PTSD on a very first-hand basis from Marines who were advanced area Marines who were, hey, one guy said, Frank, my skill is I kill people. And there's not a lot of jobs out there unless I want to join the mob or the CIA, and I don't want to do either one. So it was a lot of working with the veteran to here's all the skills that you have. These are the things that you developed while you were in the military. And no, you don't have to shoot people. There's other ways to use those skills. At that point, I decided I was going to start. I don't know why I started writing books. I just did. I couldn't sleep at night. I wasn't going to lay awake all night. So I started writing some books. I did 5 books in 2-3 years. And they were okay books, but I didn't understand how to play the game. So I'm writing these books, and I thought, okay, it was a good adventure, but I'm going to stop now because I'm not getting what I want out of it. I was then asked to do a radio show with Voice America. And that radio show dealt with life-altering events. And we dealt with, again, a lot of veterans and a lot of people who had something happen in their life that changed the trajectory of what they thought their life was going to be.
Right.
And the life that they had turned out to be better than the life that they thought they were going to have. So we did that for 69 weeks. It was very successful. We had 240,000 listeners in 42 countries. And then we moved it to TV, to Roku TV. And that's what then I started meeting people who knew how to deal in the book publishing world.
Right.
And that's where the books came from. The last 4 was a business series called Business Secrets for Walking on Water. And we put 4 books together. And now that we learned the process a little bit, they all hit bestseller in multiple categories. And I met the Houston Veteran Region Chamber through Mike Martin, who seems to be the Pied Piper for that group. Mike joins the chamber. So we joined the chamber, and he introduced me to Dave Weaver. And I was telling Dave, I have this idea to write a book about with veterans about veterans. And it was going to be called Business Secrets from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. Why did you go into the military? What did you learn in the military? Your best memories, your worst memories in the military. What was it like when you got out? And the amazing thing was, with so many veterans, we've got so much training at a very young age. We had so much responsibility at a very young age. And we get out and they say, oh, thank you for your service. And, oh, here you can have an entry-level job being a forklift operator. We have to do a better job in training veterans as to how your skills translate and the value you bring. And what I love about what the Houston Veteran Chamber does is they're doing that with people like Tricia Stetzel and Dennis Stetzel and what you guys are doing. Plus, you're going to the other side and talking to the employers and talking to the industries and saying, this is why you need to work with veteran-owned companies and why you need to hire veterans. Okay? Let's take John Cackle does a great story. He said, let's take a 22-year-old who's been in the military, and let's take a 22-year-old graduate from pick whatever college you want. Okay? The veteran has had responsibilities. They've had responsibilities for people's lives. They had management responsibility, they had leadership. They had to find ways to get around things. Now let's take that 22-year-old student that even if they went to Stanford or Harvard. What have they accomplished? Probably nothing. Are they going to show up? They want to run your company. They don't want to work in your company. So this is why veterans are such valuable people. So we put this book together, and I think there were 19 total authors, contributing authors who wrote a chapter. And that book came out on March 29th, and it hit bestseller in 9 categories. And 1 month after release, it was still in the top 20, which is outstanding when you can stay in the top 20 for that period of time.
That's absolutely amazing, man. You mentioned a lot of our favorite people, especially from Mike Martin to John to the Stetzels to you. You know what? You said you were a mentor with the Veteran Court program.
Yes.
I'm a graduate.
Really?
Yes, sir. I went through the court systems here in Brazoria County. And we
try to talk about that often too, because it's so powerful. And you said something that we resonated with often, where it's like veterans don't realize their power or their skills. And we have so many. And like you said, within that 4 years of your service, You learned more growth than you did anywhere else, even through
Absolutely.
structured education.
Absolutely. One of the things that when I was at UCLA in the graduate program, he's now the dean of the school, Anderson Business School at UCLA. What he said was, this was way back in the 70s or in the 80s. He said, we, the academia, are doing a disservice to business. We are not creating people who can do the job. We are creating people who can do reports. We are creating models. That's not getting the job done. But that's what we're teaching.
Wow, that was in the 80s.
That was in the 80s, right? Now, move way forward, that's still the case. That's still the case. When I was an executive with NCR, and then AT&T bought NCR, and they had a program for a while, and they said, we're only going to hire graduate students from Class A universities. Okay, now in California, Class A university is Cal, Berkeley, Stanford, UCLA, University of California, Davis. Okay, those are the places you can hire. So they went out and they hired I don't know how many people. Cataclysmic failure. Absolute cataclysmic failure. They came in, well, I want to write a business report. Okay, well, we got people that do that already. Well, I want to do the analysis for product marketing. I said, well, we already got people that do that too. What we need you to do is this. Well, they didn't know how to do this. And they didn't want to do this. And then when they came up against something where they bumped their head, or now you got to think and react and get around whatever the obstacle is, they couldn't do it. So I was the renegade because I couldn't get people hired from Stanford and Cal and Berkeley because I was setting up a new division. So I went out and I got California State University, Sacramento, Fresno State, and a number of veterans. Okay. We kicked ass. Our division did way better than all these other people. And they would come to me and say, well, Frank, you're not following the plan. And I said, yeah, well, I'm way ahead of the plan. So let's talk about what we should be doing as opposed to what you have on this piece of paper that you think that some MBA wrote that is the way to go. This is best practice. And that's a term, and I talked with Tricia Stetzel. Best practice is a term that drives me absolutely out of my mind because best practice says, I'm giving up. This is as good as it's going to get. Okay. And we always looked for what's the next practice? What's the next thing that we should be doing that's going to differentiate us from the herd and make us better than what we are currently?
If you are a veteran and you are hearing this right now, know that that's what we look for. We as veterans always look for what's next, the next problem, the next solution. How are we getting better? We don't give up. And a lot of folks ask us, hey, how did you transition? And we won't tell them. But the thing is, it's your transition. It's you, what you have to do. And that's coming from you, Frank. I hear that same passion that we have. So what is something that the listener, a veteran, can take away that they may not really fully understand that they possess, but they really do?
The big thing that veterans have is the best ability is availability. Okay. A veteran is going to show up, number one. Every day. They're not going to miss a day. They're not going to call us. They are going to show up. You are going to say to them, this is what we're trying to accomplish. And then they will find a way as soon as because here's the plan. And the plan goes away just like that because something's going to happen and the plan's not going to follow exactly. And right. Veterans sit down and they say, all right, now, what do I need to do to get to where we need to go? That's what we do. And that's what, when I talked to the veterans, when I was doing the veteran treatment court, that's what we had to go back to. Well, what did you do when that occurred? Well, I had to do these things. And I said, okay, that's showing that you're resilient. That's showing that you're persistent. That's showing that you have the ability to think through a scenario and to find a solution that's acceptable. Okay. The big difference with the veterans that I was mentoring was if they made a mistake, people died. All right. So what I try to tell veterans is, look, no one's going to die here. All right. So what you have to look at is, I know how to do this. I have that capability. I'll give you an example. One veteran I worked with, she was in Afghanistan. Obviously, she's a woman. She went and got a job in Chicago with a publishing company. And she walks in one day and they're going to do this big, massive presentation and their copy system is down. And everybody's running around like, oh my God, what are we going to do? This big meeting's coming up. And she walked in and said, okay, what's the problem here? All right, let's think about it. Well, there's a Kiko's down the street. Let's take the materials, go down to Kiko's, make the copies, come back in. All right. Call the shop down the street, have bagels delivered. We'll be ready for the meeting. Everything's going to be fine. And all these people looked at her and go, well, how did you do that? She said, well, it's very simple. What's the problem? And then what's the solution? How do we get around this obstacle? This is not rocket science. That's what veterans do. And they do it better than anybody.
It's like, we talk about it a lot, start with the end in mind. And I feel, so I got into the leadership realm and discovering more and more like the theories behind it all, like Simon Sinek's with, start with why. Veterans have had a hands-on practical application of leadership. We just don't know the theory behind it. And so when I hear you say stuff like that too, it's like, we just saw that the job needed to get done and we did it. We applied the leadership instead of knowing the exact way to get it, your plan, your best practices. It's like, no, this is what needs to get done. And as a veteran, we know how to apply it and get that job done.
Absolutely. And the other thing that veterans do extremely well, and I hate the term pivot. I like course correction better than pivot. All right. Is we'll see an opportunity and we can move in that direction. For example, I've written these books and all of a sudden other authors start coming to me and my partner and saying, hey, you guys have figured this out. You've got 11 consecutive books that you've worked with to become #1 bestsellers. Would you help us market and promote our books? All right. So there's an opportunity. We've never done that. We did it for ourselves, but we hadn't done it for anybody else yet. So we put together a whole business plan. We call it Trust the Process. And we have a whole series of campaign. And the other thing a veteran does is they're incredibly detailed. Okay. We don't like surprises. Okay. We try to do everything we possibly can to eliminate the surprises. There's going to be surprises, but we want to eliminate as many as possible. So we put together a very detailed statement of work when we go to work with some of these authors. So this is what we're going to do. This is what you're going to do. There's going to be no surprises here. And then we start moving forward. So when we see an opportunity, number one, we have the wherewithal to say, like you just got done saying, how can I get this accomplished? What are the steps that I need to do? And then we put a plan of action together and then we go forward. The worst thing that you can do is to wait for everything to be perfect. I got to wait. Oh no, I got to get this done first and I got to get this done. That's all crap. Find the opportunity and start moving forward because you can always adjust as you go. Make sense?
Oh yeah.
That makes sense 100%. I'm just sitting here smiling because I'm like, man, that's it.
Because we oftentimes we struggle to relay it to a veteran, right? In certain ways. And man, I talk about this with my kids a lot. But it's when you hear it from someone else who has been through what you've been through and you trust them, you're more likely to take their advice. And that's why it's just, that's what we hope to bring on this show and on this podcast is to let veterans know, like, man, you are set up to take on all of these world's problems and provide value to where you can make a sustainable life and make a sustainable income. And so what I've heard from you saying is taking the skills that we already have and being able to apply them.
Exactly. That's exactly the case. We've had it's the practical experience that's the magic. Is there's classroom training, and then there's real world. It's almost like street smarts and book smarts. Okay, veterans have the street smarts. We know what to do to make something happen, to have something positive move forward. Okay, and a veteran doesn't give up. We just don't. We can't give up because, again, if you're in a war zone and you give up, people die. And when you have that kind of responsibility at a very young age, you take it very seriously. And you know that I can find ways to get where we need to go. Now, the challenge is getting the industries to understand that. And I think this is where what you're doing and what the Houston Veterans Chamber is doing is going out to those industries and saying, look, why would you not want to have do business with people like this? What's the downside of doing this? Okay. And when I worked in the tech world, we had to do a lot of business with the government. So you had to deal with minority, women, military, veteran type businesses. And you used to hear all the nonsense. Oh, that's a set aside. You guys didn't earn that. That's nonsense. What it does is it opens the door. It gives you an opportunity. Now, what you do with that opportunity, that determines what your success is going to be. But that just opened a door. That's not a handout. That's not an entitlement. That is something that you earned, and that door got opened. The other thing that I've seen over and over and over again is veterans will always help another veteran. I've never seen a veteran say, get out of here. You're wasting my time. Right? Larry Broughton, who wrote the foreword to this book, The Battlefield to the Boardroom, he was a Special Forces Green Beret. And now he owns the Broughton chain of hotels. And I mentioned, we got in contact with him and said, Larry, I'm going to write this book. This is what I want to do it about. Would you be willing to write a foreword? He said immediately, yes, absolutely. Send me what you have. There was, I don't know if I got time. Let me see if I can figure it out. No, absolutely, yes, I'm going to do it. Okay. We sent him the book in the working, it wasn't even done. Here's a working copy. He wrote this spectacular introduction. And the thing that he put in there that just it blew me away is the underlying thing with a veteran is this love. And he says you're going to miss it unless you're looking for it. But there's this tremendous love that veterans have. They have love for their family, love for their country, love for what it is that they're doing. And we didn't do this. We didn't join the military for the money, for sure. We didn't do it for the medals. We didn't do it for the glory. We did it because we love the life that we have, and we hope to God that none of our family will ever have to go to war. That's what we did. That's why we did what we did. And then when we got out, we were looking for opportunities. And it's nice. Larry Broughton said this. He goes, "It's nice to hear thank you for your service." I mean, that's wonderful. And Kevin Matthews said the same thing. That's not what we need. But what we need is to let people know, I've got this. I can do this. These are the things that I bring to the party. And then work with people like yourselves and Tricia Stetzel and Dennis to turn those raw skills into something marketable, into something where you can walk in and say, this is the situation that you're facing. This is what I bring to the party. What I found, which is really interesting, is the lower ranking people tend to do better. Example. Now, I'm not going to pick on officers, but one of my cousins, retired colonel, full colonel, ran the Black Hawk helicopter thing multiple times. Okay. He gets out, he goes to work for a consulting company, and he's issuing orders. And he contacted me and he said, "Frank, how do you do this, man?" He said, "I'm giving orders all damn day long. I can't get anything done." And I said, "Well, Tom, number one, you're not in the Army anymore. And number two, nobody gives a damn about your orders. What they want to know is why," back to Simon Sinek, "why are we doing this? And what's the value of it? And how are we going to get this done?" It's not what. You don't tell people what to do. You tell them why you're doing it. And here's how we're going to go about doing it. And then he finally came to, okay, well, maybe I'm doing this wrong. Oh, yeah, you think? Okay, let's take a step back and relate to the people in a way that you need to relate to them. John Cackles had a great story in the book where he comes in, he's 21 years old. He goes, "I'm 21 years old. I'm a combat engineer. We're laying landmines and putting things out to prevent the enemy from coming in and taking territory. So I got people who've been doing this for years. And the reason I'm there is because 4 other people failed." And so you walk in and you have this, here comes the latest loser, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now you can come in and try to be, I'm a lieutenant, I'm this, I'm that, and this is how important I am, and you're going to fail. But the ones, the veterans who do succeed is, what do we need to get done? I'll come in. You've been here longer than I have. What's worked for you? Okay, let's see if we can fine tune what works for you and make that even better. That's where the success is coming from. And what I'm seeing with a lot of corporations, particularly since the COVID world came out, is the role of a manager has changed radically. I interviewed a futurist, Dr. Edward Hess from the University of Virginia. And he said, Frank, managers have to become enablers. Managers have to be able to put people in positions to succeed, because sitting there in a room with 25 people sitting in cubicles, that's over. And if you think being a manager is making sure somebody shows up at 8 o'clock and takes a 10-minute break and is back in 10 minutes, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. Veterans understand that. You do what it takes to get the job done. Okay? And if you can do it in 4 hours, that's great. Then there's other things that you can be doing with the rest of your time. That makes sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think I think you're coming on at a great point in our own show and within the community, because it's important for veterans to realize and that they can unlock that potential, and hearing it from us, it comes all the time. We're that type of people, but also to really see it take form, with all due respect, Mr. Frank, from somebody who has been there and done it multiple times throughout their lives. Like, in every spot in your career, you can point to, these are the skills that I had because I served, because I was in the military. This is what I see in veterans, throughout your long career. And now you're sharing those same stories from other successful business owners that are veterans as well.
Exactly. This latest book was so enlightening. We're now looking at bringing it to colleges and bringing it to entry-level management roles and saying, look, this is what it's going to take. Because the thing that I see all the time, you take individual, this is corporate America. I'm taking individual contributors and they did a really good job. You're a really good salesman. You're a really good engineer. So I'm going to make you a manager. Okay. You have no skills. I'm not going to train you. I am going to train you. I'm going to send you away for a week and you're going to get fire hose training. I'm going to stick a fire hose in your mouth and you're going to forget 99% of the stuff before you walk out of the room. Right. They haven't been trained. And I would sit down with people and said, well, what's the military? What's he done? I said, I don't give a damn what the guy's rank was. They were trained to be a leader, because at some point in time, that buck sergeant may have to be in charge of a situation. They may have to be the one that's calling the shots. And that's how we were trained to do that. All right. Yes, we know how to follow orders. Absolutely. But we also know that if something falls apart, you got to pick up and make an adjustment. I don't know who the military person was that when the first shot is fired, the battle plan goes out the window. Okay. Now it's intuition. Now it's being smart. Now it's caring about the people that you're responsible for. And that's another big thing that I see with veterans that you do not see in corporate America, having gone through corporate America, is they don't give a damn about their staff. Not all of them, but for the most part, it's what's in it for me.
Yeah.
And there's all this backstabbing. There's all this game playing that goes on. And it's not necessary. And you get to a veteran who comes in and they're going to care, number one, that everybody on the team is successful, because if everyone's not successful, the program doesn't fit. We're not successful as a group. One person making a major error can cause the death of many other people in a war zone, correct?
Correct. And it's crazy that you say that, because it's something that William and I are real passionate about. We'll tell you what we did, how we did it, what worked and what not to do, and what didn't work. So when it comes to the podcast world, as well as our apparel brand and branding ourselves, we attempted things, some things failed, and we were successful in other parts. So when people come to us and ask us for advice, we're like, look, we can show you what worked for us and this is how to do it. But I can tell you, don't do this.
What did?
Yeah.
Here's the landmines. I can
Yeah.
tell you where the landmines are. All right, let's see if we can avoid them and move on your way. I think the big thing that we learned is there is no failure. Okay, something occurred, it didn't work according to plan. All right, what did we do? We had to adjust it. All right, so now as you go forward, just as you said, don't do this. We know that this doesn't work. All right, so let's move on to the next thing and just continue going forward. You can't get caught up in if something didn't work and therefore you get depressed and, oh my God, this is awful. And I see that a lot in the transition phase, because you were part of something in the military. You were part of a community. You knew what your role was. You knew what your position was. You knew what was expected of you. And you get out, and that's not the case. Carlene Johnson did a wonderful piece in the book about that I got out, and all of a sudden I'm working for people who are into micromanaging and who have never really managed anything in their life, and they're not concerned about the mission. They're concerned about their own little piece. All right, how do I make this better for me, as opposed to how do I make this better for us? That's why so many veterans move on and set up their own businesses. Now, that's the good and the bad. The good is we're going to go set up our own business. The bad is we tend not to ask for help.
I mean, yes,
it's true.
Yes,
we learn from trial and error.
We're going to figure it out, and sometimes we do, and other times we don't. And this is where I think what you're doing and what Houston's doing is I work with a lot of nonprofits and a lot of groups that deal with veterans. And there's 45,000 organizations in the United States that are dedicated to something with veterans. That's according to the IRS. 45,000. Okay. And everybody's intentions are good. They're all good intentions. They're all good people, but very few of them are getting anything done. Okay. In the way that's what's really needed. Now, if you're doing, mental health or, paralyzed veterans, okay, that's one thing. But the veterans that's coming out and trying to get a job and trying to find sustainable income, that's where what you're doing in Houston is better than anything I've ever seen anywhere in the world. And I've been all over the world. This is a better program because we're zeroing in on the individual. What skills do you have? What are you interested in? How can we move you into that role? Here's the things you have to know to run a business. Knowing one thing incredibly well. I was a deputy director for the Veteran Business Outreach Center of Northern California for a period of time. And one of the things I would hear a lot is, well, I want to start my own business. Okay, why? Because I hate working for other people. Okay, not a good reason, right? I'm going to start my own business because I know how to do this really well. And I said, well, that's great. That's great. You're going to be an employee. Being a business owner means, how am I going to structure this? How am I going to do payroll? What kind of accounting am I going to have? How am I going to market it? All these different things come into play as a business owner. Okay, so what you need to do, surround yourself with people who have been where you want to go. I see this all the time. I'm a judge and a mentor with University of California Entrepreneurship Academy. Okay, the 10 major research universities in California. And they came to me and said, Frank, this was a couple of years ago. I said, Frank, we have 19,224 patents and licenses that belong to the University of California system. And I said, wow, that's impressive. So why am I here? And they said, 65% of our revenue comes from 5. And I said, 5%, right? And they said, no, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 patents generate 65% of our revenue. And I said, okay, well, that's not very good. So what are you doing about it? I said, well, we're trying to show them what it takes to be a business owner. All right. Now, the difference is, and I've watched Tricia and Dennis Stetzel do their thing. The difference is at the academic world, they're doing it at the academic model. Okay. This is what you have to do. You have to get, put a business plan together and a marketing plan together. And those are important. You do have to do those. And then you have to go for funding. And then you have to go through this. And then you get a first financial plan to get funds. And then you go back for second. And as I was listening to them talk about it, I said, guys, let's think about this for a second. 50 to 60% of businesses fail within 5 years. 80% fail within 10. So what it is you're doing is you're teaching these people a system that fails. Why would you go down that path when you know those are the numbers? Well, that's the established best practice. And then again, my head explodes and I said, well, it's not a best practice if it's not working. Okay, it's selling a lot of books and it's putting people in your classrooms and they're paying a bunch of money in tuition, but that's not getting the solution. They're not coming out with what they really need to have. And then they would sit down as I'm doing this mentoring with them. I said, okay, who are your strategic partners? Who are the people you're going to for advice? So I'm going to a professor and my frat brother and my uncle's cousin who ran a gas station once upon a time. And they said, well, have they ever done what you're trying to do? Well, no. And I said, well, why do you think that they're going to be able to help you get where you want to go? Isn't it better to deal with somebody who's already done what you're trying to do, because they can show you, as we just talked about, where the landmines are. We can guide you on the way you want to go, but if you set up a series of clones and you come up to something that you don't know, and it's like, you turn to them, well, if you don't know it, they certainly don't know it. One of the books we wrote, Business Secrets for Walking on Water, is what you know is not nearly as important as what you don't know. And who you know is far more important than what you know. That's why I tell veterans, reach out into the veteran community, because somebody has done what you're trying to do. And they said, well, why would they help me? I'm going to be their competitor. And I said, no, you're not going to be their competitor. You are going to be an ally for them.
Yeah.
You may be working together on a project if you're in the same industry. Okay, these projects are large. You can then be a subcontractor for each other. And it's not a case of, I'm not going to tell you because then you'll know my secret. We don't do that. Veterans don't do that.
You got it. I mean,
yeah, you said it.
We try to. It's just so nice to hear it from someone else. It really is, because we talk about this a lot. I'm like, I have no problem telling you everything that I've done to get here, because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to execute. And my wife and I, we have shaved ice and lemonade business too. If you're curious about running a shaved ice and lemonade stand, like, I'll tell you how to do it. I'll tell you how we got started. I'll tell you why I buy my products. It doesn't bother me, because at the end of the day, you still have to go out there and operate. And as you get better, that's going to make me better too, because it's like the only time we're competing is if we're in the same event together. Maybe
Exactly.
after that, I can still, like, hey man, that was awesome. Good job out there. I like the way you did this differently, because we're going to see it from two different sets of eyes. We're going to see it differently. And there's enough commerce in this world where both of us can be really successful if we both apply ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's definitely the case.
That's definitely what we believe in, and we preach here. We're not competing with anybody. I mean, I think we've said it quite a few times. The only people that we compete with is ourselves.
Exactly.
And try to make ourselves better than we were yesterday. And that's it. Nothing, no competition out there.
Nope.
Right.
And you hit it. There's always going to be that smaller percentage of folks who are rude, right? I mean, veteran community's got it too. But for the most part, if you're a veteran out there and you're looking for resources, like, reach out to one of us. We will let you know where to go. And if you're in Houston, the Houston Regional Veterans Chamber of Commerce is phenomenal. But there's so many resources to help you really unlock the skills that you have so that you can give at your full potential. That's what I was leading towards.
No,
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Those warm introductions matter. The warm introductions matter so much. And I sit in on some of those calls on Fridays with the Veteran Chamber, and someone will say, I'm doing this. And wait, let me give you a name of somebody you need to talk to. They're looking for the same thing, or they're trying to accomplish what you're trying to get done, or they've done what you're trying to get done. and it's amazing. Dr. Johnson, he's there's a great deal of work in the governmental sector with the state of Texas and with the federal government. And he and I got connected through the Veteran Chamber. And we're finalists on a big contract with the state of Texas for state teacher retirement, communication, and education. And that was just collaboration between two veterans who said, okay, well, I can do this. And I'm really good at this, but you're better at this over here. So why don't we come together and collaborate and bring our skills together and see if we can win this? Now, I don't know if we're going to win the deal, but if we do, it's going to be a nice big win for the veteran community.
I love that. I love that. You notice how he said it's not going to be a big win for him. He said it's going to be a big win for the veteran community. And that's what I love to hear that.
Yeah. There's a lot of us need to see that, I think, and folks like you are really paving the way for us. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, good. It's nice to have the interaction. When I got out, I interviewed Tricia Stetzel. One of the things that she said was, when I got out of the military, I didn't do any of the things that I had earned. It wasn't that I was ashamed of being a veteran. It's just that I'm going through the day-to-day life. Okay. I did the same thing. I got out. I didn't even go to the VA. I've never gone to the VA for medical ever. I thought, well, why? I got this group over here. I've got medical from where I'm working, or I've got whatever I've got. And you're doing yourself a disservice because you earned it. And you cannot let people who have not done what you've done tell you that you're a drain on society, or this is an entitlement, or this isn't fair. I was in class in college getting my bachelor's degree, and it was a statistics class, and you had to come up with a hypothesis. So I said, okay, well, can a student veteran, this is a long time ago, get a pizza and a beer for under $10? Okay, again, this was a long time ago. And so I thought, well, it's going to be my hypothesis. So I'm going to go to these different places, blah, blah, blah. So the professor says in class, I'm tired of listening to the veterans and your problems. You get money for doing nothing. All these kids in here are working their butts off. They're paying all this tuition, and you're getting money, and you're not doing a damn thing for it. Okay, now my first reaction, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to beat the living crap out of this guy.
My first reaction would have been my reaction.
That was my first. Okay, well, I learned in the military, don't be stupid. Don't fight a battle you can't win. Going down and punching this guy out in front of class was not going to work. So I was working part-time in the Veteran Service Center. So I went over there and I livid and I'm explaining what's going on. And some of the cooler heads said, Frank, what we need to do is let's go to the dean of the school. Let's write all this up. It wouldn't keep the anger and the opinions out, just the facts. Go in, met with the dean of the program of the school, said, this is what has occurred. This is completely unacceptable. And we are not going to allow this to occur. We are not going to tolerate this. Now, we're coming to you first before we put it out to the press, before we put it out to the student newspapers, before we do it. We're going to you first to give you the opportunity to resolve this issue. All right. 2 weeks later, we had a different professor. Now, I don't know what occurred or how it occurred. If he was still employed there, I don't know. I don't care. But the situation got rectified because you learn as a veteran, you can't John Wayne it. You can't go running down there and punch people out, right? Strategically, how do we go about making this happen? And that's what we ended up doing.
Man, I would have loved for that story to end differently.
No, it ended perfectly.
Yeah.
It's just I guess in our mind, we played it a little different.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
like, See, that's probably how I ended up in Veterans Court also. I would do the first reaction and then worry about it later.
Yeah. And there were a lot of guys and women in the Veterans Court. We had one young woman. She was in the Army, and she was in there, and she was going through a divorce, and it was nasty, and they were having a problem with the exchange of the children, and the husband's new person he was involved with was refusing to let her have the kids. So she got a baseball bat and basically did a number on the person's car and smashed in a Carrie Underwood thing, right? Broke the windows, broke the doors. So obviously she got arrested.
That'll do it.
And she gets, you apply for Veterans Treatment Court, as you know. They don't have to take you.
Right.
But if you're a veteran, you have the opportunity, and they talk with you and see what the situation is. And the judge, David Abbott, who was a JAG officer in the Marines, and he's now the judge of this court in Sacramento, California. He's now retired. And when you're entering the program, as you know, people can come in and say, well, I disagree with this. I don't think you should allow them into this program, blah, blah, blah. Right? And so the girlfriend came to court and said, I object to this, and she should be in prison, and she did this, and she did this, and she did that. And the judge listened nicely and said, she is a veteran. She has earned this right. And no one was harmed. Your car was harmed, but no one else was harmed. And you have insurance, and insurance is going to take care of your car. Okay? So yes, we're letting her into the program. And she got through that. Again, if you did everything perfect, you could be done in 12 months. She got through it in 10. She is now in her last year of residency as a medical doctor. Now, had they not had that option, she would have gone to jail for who knows how long. It wouldn't have been forever, but look at what the impact on her life would have been. She would have lost her kids, which she did not do. She did not lose her kids because of this. And the court said, you must show up for all your, as you know, you must show up for all the court dates. You must make all your meetings. You must make all these things. But they were very lenient with her as to help making sure she got to get her the exams that she had to get done. Okay. And it was one of the most proudest moments in that court when she graduated after 10 months. And got a big ovation. And a lot of former people who were in the program come back for the graduations, right? So there's big applause for her. And when she started her internship or residency, which I don't know what the right medical term is, she came back and said that to the court. And again, that Judge Abbott was thrilled to death that we did the right thing for the right reasons. And yes, you in the heat of the moment, sometimes you do stupid stuff. And he told her that was stupid. What you did was, he didn't say stupid. What you did is illegal. And as much as you felt justified in doing that, there is no justification for it.
Right. So
that is a crime. And there's going to be a penalty for that. And you're going to have to go through this program, which she did. But I'm really proud of her.
Yeah. And like you said, imagine not only the lives that, not only changing her life, right, without the Veterans Court, but the lives that she's going to impact because of that. Yes. You know, it's not just her and her kids. Obviously, that's very, very important. But think of the ripple effect because she got that opportunity and what she's going to go on and do next. Like, that is exciting stuff.
It's amazing. And that's what that program is all about, man. People talk about the program and say, oh, man, you know, it's y'all's get out of free jail card. No, it's not. It's something, it takes a lot of work on the veterans' part. You know, you got to go to counseling. You have to these things are hard to come by. It's just the outcome is amazing. Yeah. The feeling.
And it's the work that you do on yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing that I think that's the misconception folks don't realize. Like when you're going through a process like this, you're working on yourself. Yes. And you are exemplifying, multiplying, you're just breeding your success because all you're doing is focusing on how do I make sure all these things are done so that I can get better. So and that's where it all stands. Like I'm sure Raul could tell you, like where his growth came was through that process, and now what you see is a totally different person than where he was before.
Absolutely, that's absolutely the case. When we saw a lot of PTSD, when the military finally said that PTSD is real, and a lot of what we went through, a lot of the guys that went through and the women through the treatment court was identifying the trigger. Okay, and it could be a smell.
Yeah.
All right. It could be a noise. It could be a sound. It doesn't have to be a backfiring car or something along those lines. It was just one guy. The trigger is that he was a Vietnam veteran and they were using napalm. Okay. Well, the smell of napalm is something you'll never ever forget. And he was at a place and there was the tires were burning. And that was the thing that triggered him. Okay. Nobody attacked him. Nobody said anything to him, but it was that going back to the napalm and the smell, it was something that would trigger him. And then he didn't go out and punch people out, but then he wouldn't functioning correctly. He would get upset, or he would withdraw, or he would get in an argument with his wife or his kids, or whatever the case might be. You know, PTSD is not jumping up on top of a building and shooting people. It's what it does to you internally.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good one.
Right?
Like that. Well, we appreciate it, Mr. Frank. Why don't you let us know how we can find and get in touch with you or find your books?
Sure. I'm easy to find. It's the books are all on Amazon. You can get them all on Amazon. My website is frankzaccari.com, www.frankzaccari.com. Not the most original. I keep everything simple. And my email is frankzaccari@gmail.com. And I can send that to you guys. And I really appreciate the opportunity, because this is important.
Yeah.
It's important that veterans are having podcasts and programs that revolve around what we've been through and what we've done, and how we can help each other.
Right. Well, I want to say thank you for your service. You know, I know it seemed like a sensitive subject that you said, you know, you served over there, but not in country. And that's like, I want you to know that we appreciate it, you know, and we appreciate you being so open and bringing it today. Like you brought so much value. I know I'm motivated. Coming away from this conversation.
Definitely. I'm gonna try to see what I can do next.
and so, as we know, the Charlie Mike means continue mission. And so my last question for you today, Mr. Frank, is what does the term Charlie Mike mean to you?
Charlie Mike, to me, means we're focused on moving forward. Not just ourselves, but we're focused on helping our brothers and sisters who served to move forward. There is a way. And follow us, and we will help you get to where you want to go. That's what it means to me.
Whew.
Absolutely amazing. Amazing. Again, Mr. Frank, we just want to say thank you. And we definitely would love to have you back on the show again.
Anytime.
Keep us updated on your projects. We'd love to just share your information, and thank you. It's an honor to have you on the show today.
Honor's all mine. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
As always, you guys, thank you for tuning in. And from William and I here at the Charlie Mike Pearland Podcast Studio right here in Pearland, you guys, Charlie Mike.